Greetings. Today we delve into a mysterious and revolutionary chapter of armored warfare that shook the very foundations of military strategy during the Second World War. On the morning of September the 19th, 1944, in the fog-shrouded landscape of Lorraine, German Panther tanks faced an enemy they had never seen before, an elusive, lightning-fast force capable of outmaneuvering and annihilating them in seconds. But what was this strange new threat? How did it redefine what was possible on the battlefield? Imagine a tank that can reach 55 miles per hour, a speed unheard of for armored vehicles of the era. Can you believe that a single American vehicle, the M18 Hellcat, could spin its turret 360 degrees in less than 25 seconds, making traditional tank engagement timings obsolete? How did the Allies come to develop such a weapon? One built around speed as armor, agility as firepower. And what happened when German commanders first encountered these low-profile, lightning-quick vehicles during the Battle of Anzio, only to dismiss them as exaggerated combat stories? What if the entire concept of armored combat was about to change forever? Could these rapid, agile tank destroyers truly outflank and destroy even the most heavily armed German tanks? And how did a radical shift in military thinking, driven by a desire for mobility and surprise, lead to the creation of a new kind of war machine? In this video, we will follow the path from a secret military briefing in late 1941 through the development of a revolutionary American tank destroyer to its first deadly encounter with German forces on the battlefield. We will separate myth from reality, uncovering the astonishing truths behind a weapon that would forever alter armored warfare. The most incredible innovations are often born from the need to adapt. So get ready, because what you're about to learn is just the beginning of a story that will challenge everything you thought you knew about war on wheels. The true battle for the future of armored combat has just begun. On the morning of September the 19th, in the year 1944, precisely at 6:15 in the morning, the scene was set near the small town of Ardennes, nestled in the eastern part of France. The landscape was shrouded in a thick, opaque fog that clung heavily to the rolling countryside of the Lorraine region, obscuring the view and adding an eerie silence to the environment. Amidst this mist, the formidable Panthers belonging to the 113th Panzer Brigade pressed forward steadily towards their assigned strategic objectives. According to the after-action report filed by the brigade and subsequently transmitted to the headquarters of the 5th Panzer Army, the lead elements of the advancing column encountered enemy armored units at approximately 6:20 in the morning. These enemy forces were identified as tank destroyers of an unknown model, yet their presence was unmistakable. The enemy vehicles showcased an extraordinary level of agility and responsiveness, engaging the German tanks at ranges varying from approximately 400 to 800 meters with rapid-fire salvos before swiftly relocating out of sight, leaving the Germans to ponder their next move. The initial contact was devastating. Within a span of just 5 minutes, 3 Panther tanks had been destroyed. From amidst the swirling fog, the German tank crews, who had become accustomed to conventional enemy tactics, suddenly found themselves confronted with a phenomenon they had never encountered before. An unfamiliar high-pitched whine, reminiscent of an aircraft engine's scream, pierced through the morning air. As silhouettes of strange low-profile vehicles emerged momentarily from the fog, they fired explosive salvos with precision and speed, then disappeared before the German gunners could aim their turrets accurately. Each engagement lasted less than 20 seconds, but the impact on the German minds was profound. Across the battlefield that day, a harsh reality was beginning to dawn upon the German forces. The 39 tanks of the German contingent, all part of the 113th Panzer Brigade commanded by Colonel Erich Fonsendorf, were about to discover a terrifying new truth. The Americans had developed a tank destroyer capable of reaching astonishing speeds, up to 55 miles per hour. This was an unprecedented feat, making it faster than any tracked armored vehicle in existence at that time. Conventional German doctrine had long held that tank destroyers should be slow-moving, heavily armored battalions resembling their own Jagdpanzer Panthers, designed to withstand hits while delivering devastating fire. However, the American M18 Hellcat was built around a radically different set of principles: speed as armor, mobility as a means of survival, and agility as the key to lethality. In this moment, the fundamental mathematics of armored combat were about to be rewritten. Previously, a Panthers turret required between 18 and 60 seconds to complete a full rotation, depending on engine power and other factors. In stark contrast, the hydraulic turret of the M18 Hellcat could spin a full 360 degrees in merely 24 seconds, regardless of the turbine's engine RPM. This meant that at a speed of 55 miles per hour, the Hellcat could cover a distance of 400 meters in less time than it took for even a Tiger tank's turret to rotate a mere 90 degrees. Such capabilities rendered traditional tank engagement timings obsolete and opened the door for a new era of armored warfare driven by speed and agility. The origins of this revolutionary concept trace back to December of 1941, when Lieutenant Colonel Andrew Davis Bruce stood before a classified briefing at the War Department. The swift and devastating success of German blitzkrieg tactics had shattered long-standing military doctrines, forcing the Allied forces to reconsider their approach. Poland, with only 35 days of fighting, had fallen under the relentless assault. France, despite hosting the world's largest army, had capitulated in just 6 weeks. The Wehrmacht's panzer divisions had convincingly demonstrated that mobility, combined with concentrated firepower, could overwhelm static defenses and entrenched positions. Recognizing this paradigm shift, Bruce, himself a cavalry officer who understood the importance of speed, maneuverability, and surprise, proposed a radical departure from traditional tank design. Instead of attempting to match German tanks in weight and firepower, the United States would develop a new type of armored vehicle, a fast, agile tank destroyer capable of hunting down enemy tanks using speed and superior mobility, much like cavalry units once hunted infantry troops. This new force would operate under a straightforward but powerful motto: seek, strike, destroy. The U.S. Ordnance Department responded swiftly, issuing detailed requirements for a fast tank destroyer in December of 1941. These specifications evolved rapidly throughout the course of the following year, with initial proposals calling for a small caliber gun of 37 millimeters, then escalating to 57, then 75, and ultimately to a 76 millimeter weapon. The design considered various suspension systems, including the Christie suspension, but eventually settled on torsion bars for better durability and handling. By April of 1943, the prototype, built by Buick, demonstrated speeds on the day of May 23rd in the year 1944 during a significant military event known as the Anzio Breakout. The German forces encountered a new type of American armored vehicle for the very first time amidst intense fighting around the strategic area. This encounter marked a pivotal moment in the evolving landscape of armored warfare. The division led by Hermann Göring-Panzer promptly reported this unusual threat in their daily combat assessment to the 14th Panzer Corps, describing the enemy's latest tank destroyer as a remarkably swift vehicle, estimated to be capable of reaching speeds between 70 and 80 kilometers per hour. The report detailed that 2 of these new vehicles, designated as Panzer IVs, had been destroyed before the enemy, which was identified as American, withdrew its forces. German crews at the scene observed that these vehicles moved with a speed and agility unlike any they had encountered before, moving so quickly that it resembled wheeled reconnaissance cars rather than tracked vehicles armed with 76 millimeter guns. The reports further described these vehicles as having a very low profile, racing across the battlefield with agility and speed that perplexed German soldiers, who were accustomed to traditional, heavily armored tank destroyers resembling their own typical designs, such as the formidable 88 millimeter armed Panthers, which weighed approximately 46 tons. Initially, these reports were dismissed in Berlin as unconfirmed and potentially exaggerated accounts of enemy capabilities, likely the result of combat stress causing German crews to overestimate the threat posed by these unfamiliar vehicles. The German High Command believed that experienced crews under pressure might have been misjudging the enemy's technological advancements, perceiving their movements as more threatening than they actually were. However, this perception would soon change dramatically as the full extent of the American tank destroyer's capabilities became undeniable. By September of the same year, 1944, the situation had evolved into a full-scale military revelation that would reshape the understanding of armored combat. The advance of the United States Third Army through the Lorraine region had pushed German defensive lines to their breaking points, exposing vulnerabilities previously unseen. In response, Adolf Hitler personally ordered a counteroffensive aimed at recapturing the city of Nancy and destroying what was perceived as the spearhead of General George Patton's rapidly advancing forces. To carry out this bold counterattack, the German 5th Panzer Army, commanded by General Hasso-Manteuffel, assembled the best available units, including the newly formed 111th and 113th Panzer Brigades, both of which were equipped with freshly manufactured Panthers, some of the most formidable tanks of the war at that time. Meanwhile, the American forces had positioned their M18 tank destroyers with the 4th Armored Division's Combat Command A near the town of Ericourt. As dawn broke on September 19th, the German assault commenced amidst thick fog, which initially hampered visibility but did not prevent the fierce engagement that followed. Lieutenant Edwin Leiper's platoon of M18 tank destroyers struck with deadly precision, utilizing a tactical approach known as shoot and scoot, firing rapidly from concealed positions and then quickly relocating to avoid return fire. According to the after-action reports of the 74th Tank Destroyer Battalion, Lieutenant Leiper's platoon engaged the enemy tanks at ranges varying from 400 to 800 yards, effectively knocking out 15 enemy vehicles within roughly half an hour of combat. Sergeant Henry R. Hartman, commanding a gunner for one of the M18 units positioned on the flank of the platoon, achieved extraordinary success by destroying 6 Panther tanks in quick succession. His crew's ability to rapidly displace to new firing positions after each kill prevented German tanks from returning accurate fire, showcasing the remarkable mobility and firepower of the American tank destroyers. Hartman's exceptional actions earned him the prestigious Distinguished Service Cross, the second highest military award for bravery in the United States. The losses sustained by the 113th Panzer Brigade were devastating, with German divisional records indicating that the unit engaged enemy tank destroyers near Ericourt. These enemy vehicles exhibited unprecedented levels of mobility, with their estimated speeds exceeding 80 kilometers per hour, a remarkable feat for armored vehicles at that time. German records documented the destruction of 39 American tanks and the damaging of 11 more, while German losses were comparatively modest, with an estimated 3 or 4 vehicles lost in the intense fighting. By November 1944, the Germans had managed to capture an intact M18 tank destroyer near Metz, a significant event that prompted detailed examination by Wehrmacht weapons testing officers. Their technical report, based on thorough testing and analysis, provided critical insights into the design and performance of this American vehicle, further confirming the revolutionary impact these tank destroyers had on the battlefield. The document being examined was subsequently forwarded to the Office of the Inspector General of the Panzer Forces, where it revealed a set of specifications that fundamentally challenged every preconceived notion about traditional tank destroyer design principles. These verified specifications provided a detailed and authoritative look at the vehicle's characteristics, prompting a reassessment of what was previously understood about armored warfare technology. The specifications indicated that the vehicle's weight was approximately 17.7 metric tons, a stark contrast to the much heavier Panther tank, which weighed around 44.8 metric tons. In terms of performance, the tank destroyer was confirmed to reach a maximum speed of approximately 88.5 kilometers per hour on test tracks, surpassing the Panther's top speed of about 46 kilometers per hour. This remarkable acceleration highlighted the vehicle's emphasis on agility and rapid maneuvering capabilities. Powering this swift machine was an R975 C4 radial engine, producing around 400 horsepower. When considering the vehicle's power-to-weight ratio, it was calculated to be about 22.6 horsepower per ton, a figure that underscored its exceptional mobility. For comparison, the Panther's power-to-weight ratio stood at approximately 15.6 horsepower per ton, and the Tiger, also a formidable German tank, registered at around 12.8 horsepower per ton, showing the American vehicle's significant advantage in terms of raw acceleration and responsiveness. The tank's turret was capable of rotating a full 360 degrees in just 24 seconds, a feat achieved through hydraulic power, allowing rapid targeting adjustments during combat. The armor protection was relatively light, with the maximum thickness at the turret front being 25 millimeters and the hull sides only 13 millimeters thick, making it vulnerable to heavy enemy fire, but optimized for speed. Its main armament consisted of either a 56 M1 or M1A2 caliber gun, both variants of the same core weapon system. The transmission system employed was a torque automatic with 3 forward speeds, enabling seamless acceleration and deceleration without the need for clutch operation. The German military analysis concluded that the vehicle's exceptional performance was largely a product of an extreme design philosophy, prioritizing mobility over armor protection. Its aircraft type, air-cooled radial engine, and automatic transmission allowed the crew to focus fully on maneuvering and tactical positioning rather than mechanical operation. The combat effectiveness of this tank destroyer depended heavily on its mobility and the skill of its crew. The mathematical advantage offered by such rapid maneuvering options was irrefutable, giving it a strategic edge in battle. It was noted that the turret traverse speeds for German tanks varied significantly depending on engine RPM. For instance, the Tiger tank could rotate its turret at speeds ranging from 6 to 19 degrees per second, taking approximately 60 to 19 seconds to accomplish a full rotation. Early Panther models were somewhat slower, rotating at a maximum of 6 degrees per second and requiring a full minute to turn a complete 360 degrees. However, late Panther models achieved an improved turret speed of up to 19 degrees per second at around 2,000 RPM, reducing the rotation time to a minimum of about 19 seconds. The Tiger II, another heavy German tank, was capable of turret rotation speeds between 15 and 24 degrees per second, with a full rotation taking roughly 24 to 15 seconds. In stark contrast, the M18's hydraulic turret traverse system maintained a constant rate of about 15 degrees per second, regardless of the engine's RPM, providing a critical advantage when engaging multiple targets or tracking fast-moving enemies. At its peak speed of around 55 miles per hour, the M18 could traverse 400 meters in just 16 seconds, cover 800 meters in 33 seconds, and cross a 1,000-meter kill zone in roughly 41 seconds. Conversely, the Panther required anywhere from 30 to 60 seconds to complete a mere 180-degree turret turn when tracking an enemy moving at various speeds. The implementation of the M18's rapid hydraulic turret traverse revolutionized American anti-tank tactics during the war. The combat manual of the 407th Tank Destroyer Battalion, revised after the Air Accord engagement, emphasized the importance of mobility over pure firepower in combat strategy. It recommended an engagement sequence involving firing 3 to 5 rounds from a concealed position, quickly displacing at least 200 yards, and then re-engaging from a different position at a different angle. The doctrine explicitly advised against remaining stationary for more than 60 seconds when under enemy observation. This shoot-and-scoot tactic proved to be highly effective, creating a tactical nightmare for German tank crews trained to conduct methodical, deliberate long-range engagements. The Germans found it difficult to adapt to opponents who refused to engage in prolonged stand-up fights, instead relying on swift, hit-and-run attacks. On the 19th of December, in the year of 1944, the German Ardennes offensive, Hitler's last major gamble, was entering its 3rd day. The 2nd Panzer Division, which was spearheading the push toward Antwerp, advanced toward a critical crossroads at Nouville, in conditions shrouded by fog and mist. The deployment of high-speed maneuvering tactics between firing positions created a formidable illusion of a much larger and more formidable defensive force. This clever use of rapid displacement made it exceedingly difficult for the enemy to pinpoint their targets accurately, resulting in a confirmed destruction of 24 enemy tanks. The losses sustained by the M18 units were relatively light, with only a single vehicle falling victim to artillery fire. The tactics employed by the Hellcat units were straightforward yet remarkably effective. They would launch a quick burst of 2 or 3 rounds and then immediately reverse at full throttle into the obscuring fog. This swift retreat meant that by the time German tanks had traversed their turrets toward the muzzle flashes, the M18 vehicles had already repositioned themselves 200 to 300 yards away, engaging from a completely different angle, and thus making it extremely difficult for the Germans to respond effectively. The 2nd Panzer Division's war diary recorded an encounter near Nouville, where the Germans faced unexpectedly stiff resistance from tank destroyers operating in the fog. The enemy vehicles displayed high mobility, making it difficult for the Germans' units to effectively engage them because of the rapid and unpredictable displacement of targets facilitated by the fog and the M18's superior speed. The German attack was temporarily suspended pending reinforcements, and this pause of approximately 48 hours proved to be a critical delay. During this period, the 1001st Airborne Division was able to strengthen Bastonia's defenses, ultimately enabling the defenders to hold the crucial crossroads, which was vital for the overall operational success. By the later months of 1944, German commanders found themselves increasingly desperate to develop tactical measures capable of countering the formidable threat posed by the M18. General Hasso von Manteuffel issued specific tactical guidance to the 5th Panzer Army, reaffirming the confirmed presence of enemy M18 tank destroyers. These vehicles were capable of extraordinarily high speeds, exceeding 80 kilometers per hour on the road and over 40 kilometers per hour off-road. Recognizing their mobility advantage, the German command emphasized that standard engagement procedures needed to be revised. They warned their units not to attempt tracking the M18 by turret traverse while in motion. Instead, they were advised to pre-position their turrets along likely displacement routes and to use infantry units equipped with Panzerfausts to flank the enemy. Artillery was to be employed to suppress suspected enemy positions, and pursuit was to be avoided altogether, given that M18 units would always outrun their pursuers. Despite these adaptations, the tactics proved largely ineffective, as the M18's speed advantage was simply too great, and German crews could not overcome the ingrained training that prioritized deliberate, precise gunnery over rapid response, which was crucial to counter such highly mobile foes. The Buick Motor Division manufactured a total of 257 M18 tank destroyers between July of 1943 and October of 1944, with production reaching its peak at 267 units in November of 1943. The original contract called for the production of nearly 9,886 vehicles. However, as the war drew to a close and the doctrine surrounding tank destroyers evolved, this number was significantly reduced. In terms of cost, each M18 was priced at $55,230 in 1943. Although relatively expensive, primarily due to the specialized engine and transmission, its mass production was feasible thanks to the well-established American automotive manufacturing techniques. By comparison, a German Panther tank cost approximately 117,100 marks and required considerably more time to produce because of its complex final drive and transmission systems. From the outset, the M18 was deliberately designed for mass production. Its power plant, the Wright R975 radial engine, was already in production for aircraft and other vehicles, ensuring availability. The torque transmission system eliminated the need for complex driver training, simplifying operational procedures. Its open-topped turret design streamlined manufacturing processes and reduced production costs, while the use of standardized automotive components wherever possible further facilitated mass production. At the Tank Destroyer Training Center at Camp Hood, Texas, specialized programs were developed to prepare crews for the unique operational demands of the M18. Training emphasized skills that diverged from traditional tank operations, with drivers focusing on high-speed maneuvering, rapid acceleration and deceleration, and terrain exploitation. Drivers learned to sustain maximum speeds while maintaining control and accuracy, enabling the vehicle to adapt swiftly to changing battlefield conditions. During the brief pauses in the battlefield, the M18 tank destroyers would often come to a standstill. Yet their crews remained highly alert and ready for action at a moment's notice. These vehicles' gunners were rigorously trained to acquire targets quickly and to be capable of firing accurately, even while the platform was in motion, a skill vital for maintaining the element of surprise and rapid response in combat. Unlike their German counterparts, whose training focused on precise, deliberate long-range shots from static positions, the crews operating the M18 learned to prioritize speed and flexibility, engaging targets at moderate distances, with a willingness to accept a lower probability of first-round hits in exchange for the ability to respond swiftly to threats. Training for the vehicle commanders was equally intensive, emphasizing a keen battlefield awareness, rapid decision-making, and seamless coordination with other units. These commanders were taught to think strategically, always considering their next 2 or 3 firing positions before executing an attack, thus ensuring continual mobility and tactical advantage. This mindset fostered a proactive approach to combat, where anticipating enemy movements became second nature. The psychological profile sought for M18 crews was distinct from that of heavy tank crews. Recruiters favored individuals comfortable with taking risks, capable of making snap decisions under pressure, and who found satisfaction in the agility and speed of their vehicles, rather than the psychological comfort offered by heavy armor protection. The most noticeable weakness of the M18 was its extremely thin armor, which was a deliberate trade-off to maximize speed and mobility. The vehicle's turret front armor was only about 1 inch thick, or roughly 25 millimeters, while the sides of the hull boasted merely 13 millimeters of protection. Such light armor rendered the M18 highly vulnerable to nearly every German anti-tank weapon available at the time, including 20 millimeter anti-aircraft guns that could be effective at close range, 37 millimeter anti-tank guns capable of penetrating its armor at any distance, and even infantry weapons such as Panzerfausts and anti-tank grenades. Artillery fragments and heavy machine gun fire, especially when directed at the sides of the vehicle, could also cause significant damage. Because of this vulnerability, the employment of M18s on the battlefield was carefully choreographed and governed by strict operational procedures. These procedures underscored the importance of constant movement. Crews were trained never to remain stationary under enemy observation, which was crucial given the vehicle's fragility. Urban combat was generally avoided where possible because the close quarters in buildings would negate the vehicle's speed advantage. Maintaining a minimum standoff distance of at least 500 meters from enemy infantry was considered essential to avoid ambushes or close-range attacks. Continuous terrain masking and concealment were vital strategies, and coordination with infantry units was critical to suppress enemy anti-tank weapons and to ensure the M18s could operate safely. Crews developed an almost instinctive awareness of their surroundings, constantly scanning for threats, escape routes, and opportunities for repositioning. By the end of the war, the combat records of the M18-equipped tank destroyer battalions revealed the extent of their contributions and the realities of their battlefield performance. The 704th Battalion claimed to have destroyed 106 enemy tanks, while the 603rd Battalion reported a total of 92 tanks destroyed. The 69th Battalion accounted for 67, and the 705th Battalion for 89 enemy tanks. The 85th Battalion registered 51 kills, adding to a total tally that reflected the vehicle's effectiveness. Overall, during the European campaign, approximately 540 M18s were fielded at maximum strength, with around 216 vehicles lost in combat. The kill-to-loss ratio was approximately 2.3 to 1, indicating that for every M18 destroyed, they had successfully destroyed more than twice that number of enemy tanks. In terms of engagement metrics, the average combat range was about 650 meters, with typical encounters lasting around 2.3 minutes. Although a 2.3 to 1 kill ratio was respectable and demonstrated the vehicle's effectiveness, it fell short of the higher expectations set before the war began. More significantly, statistics revealed that approximately 70% of the time, M18 crews were engaged in infantry support roles rather than actively hunting armored vehicles. This shift was largely due to the fundamental flaws in the tank destroyer doctrine, which assumed massed enemy armor attacks, an expectation that proved largely inaccurate in actual combat conditions. The Italian campaign presented a different set of challenges where terrain and terrain types influenced tactics. Operating within mountainous regions, the 85th Battalion found that even in such restrictive terrain, the M18's mobility proved to be a decisive advantage. The vehicles could swiftly redeploy between threatened sectors using mountain roads that were often impassable for heavier vehicles, allowing them to maintain tactical flexibility. During the intense battles along the Gothic Line, M18s would race swiftly to commanding heights, take advantageous positions, and engage German vehicles in the valleys below. After delivering their fire, they would rapidly relocate to avoid counterattacks, making use of their superior As the counter-battery fire swept through the battlefield, the arrival of Me-18 Hellcat tanks caught German forces in Italy completely off guard. These German troops, seasoned and accustomed to the slow, methodical nature of Allied advances through the challenging and rugged terrain of Italy, were often taken by surprise not just by the speed of the American response, but by the remarkable agility of the M18 itself. A core-level German military report explicitly acknowledged this unexpected agility, noting that enemy tank destroyers demonstrate the ability to rapidly concentrate at threatened points, and emphasizing that their quick redeployment often rendered German counter-battery fire ineffective. The report further highlighted that the speed of these vehicles allowed them to swiftly respond to threats, making them a formidable obstacle on the battlefield. The 79th Tank Destroyer Battalion, equipped with the M18 Hellcat, later took this remarkable vehicle to the Pacific Theater, where it participated actively in the campaign to retake the Philippines. In this largely jungle-covered environment, the M18's role was somewhat different from its European engagements. With minimal Japanese armor encountered, the vehicle primarily served in roles such as bunker destruction and supporting infantry operations. Its open turret design, however, proved to be nearly a fatal flaw against Japanese infantry tactics, as troops often exploited this vulnerability. To counter the threat of grenades and satchel charges, crews improvised protective measures by welding makeshift overhead covers and attaching chicken wire screens around the turret, aiming to defend against close-quarters attacks. Despite its impressive speed enabling rapid responses to infiltration attempts, the dense jungle terrain often negated the vehicle's mobility advantages, limiting its effectiveness in such a terrain. The M18 was distinguished by several groundbreaking features that set it apart from earlier armored vehicles. One notable innovation was the torque-o-matic transmission, an automatic transmission system developed by General Motors, which eliminated the need for manual clutch operation. This system allowed the driver to focus entirely on maneuvering, as the transmission automatically shifted between 3 forward speeds, depending on the vehicle's speed and load, an advantage particularly critical during high-speed combat maneuvers. Complementing this was the torsion bar suspension, which provided 14 inches of wheel travel. This sophisticated suspension system enabled the M18 to sustain high-speed movement over uneven and rough terrain, absorbing shocks and impacts that would have damaged vehicles with traditional leaf spring suspensions. Powering the M18 was the R975 radial engine, a 9-cylinder, air-cooled aircraft engine renowned for its exceptional power-to-weight ratio. Early models, designated C1, produced around 350 horsepower, while later versions like the C4 generated up to 400 horsepower. The air-cooled design offered a significant advantage by removing the vulnerability associated with radiators and coolant systems, which were common points of failure in traditional liquid-cooled engines. The vehicle's turret was equipped with a hydraulic traverse system powered by an electric motor, which drove a hydraulic pump. This configuration allowed the turret to rotate at a consistent rate of 15 degrees per second, regardless of the engine's speed or the vehicle's movement, providing a significant tactical advantage over the German manual traverse systems, which relied solely on crew effort and were slower and less precise. The combat record of the M18 Hellcat had a profound influence on the development of armored vehicles in the post-war years. Although the doctrine of dedicated tank destroyers was eventually abandoned, and the tank destroyer force disbanded in November of the year 1945, the Hellcat's demonstration of high mobility as a substitute for heavy armor resonated across the globe. The success of the Hellcat challenged traditional notions of armor as the primary means of survivability, leading many nations to prioritize strategic and tactical mobility in their armored vehicle designs. This shift in philosophy was reflected in the development of modern armored vehicles worldwide. The Soviet Union developed the PT-76, a light amphibious tank emphasizing mobility and versatility. Later, the BMP infantry fighting vehicle further prioritized movement and rapid deployment capabilities. The British produced the Combat Vehicle Reconnaissance Tracked CVRT series, which placed speed and agility at the forefront for reconnaissance missions. France unveiled the AMX-13, featuring an automatic loader that reduced weight and increased firepower. Germany, after the war, shifted away from heavy armor, with the Leopard 1 main battle tank, emphasizing speed and maneuverability instead. This marked a complete reversal of the World War II-era philosophy, where heavily armored tanks were considered essential. Contemporary wheeled tank destroyers and armored vehicles like the Italian Centauro, the Japanese Type 16, and the American M1128 mobile gun system are conceptual descendants of the M18 Hellcat. These vehicles accept a certain degree of vulnerability in exchange for strategic mobility, enabling rapid repositioning and adaptability on modern battlefields. But then, why was it that the German forces, famed throughout history for their tactical innovation and mastery of armored warfare, found themselves unable to effectively counter the M18 in combat? Several factors played a role in this inability. Foremost among them was Germany's doctrinal rigidity, which emphasized deliberate long-range gunnery skills, and crew training during the war years were highly refined, with soldiers dedicating extensive time and effort to perfecting their shooting techniques. These efforts, however, proved largely ineffective against targets that moved swiftly and unpredictably. The inherent technical limitations of certain tank systems played a significant role in this disparity. For example, German turret traverse mechanisms, which relied heavily on engine revolutions per minute, RPM, were unable to match the consistent and rapid hydraulic traverse systems employed by the American M18 Hellcat. This meant that while German tanks could adjust their turrets with some degree of speed, they often lagged behind the more agile American vehicles, especially when facing targets that flitted quickly across the battlefield. When the engine was idling or operating at low speeds, German tanks became virtually helpless against the flanking maneuvers of the M18, which could reposition faster than their turret systems could keep up with. The psychological impact of this technological mismatch was profound. German tank crews, who had previously enjoyed relative dominance against most Allied armored units, found themselves suddenly on the defensive. The shift from being the predators to becoming prey had a demoralizing effect, shaking their confidence and heightening their sense of vulnerability. This psychological shock could not be dismissed, as it often translated into hesitation or errors in combat. Compounding these issues was the breakdown in communication. German tactical radios, already strained and compromised by Allied jamming efforts, struggled to provide effective coordination during rapid maneuvers. As a result, German units found it difficult to mount cohesive responses against the swift and unpredictable attacks of the M18 platoons operating in coordinated formations. The inability to communicate effectively on the battlefield further diminished their chances of countering the American tactics. In the aftermath of the war, veteran testimonies from the United States Army's Military History Institute shed valuable light on what made the M18 Hellcat so successful. Soldiers consistently highlighted speed as their most crucial advantage for survival in combat. Staff Sergeant Vernon Miller from the 85th Tank Destroyer Battalion succinctly summarized this mindset. "We live by 3 rules. Shoot fast, move fast, think fast. If you did all 3, you went home. If you failed at anyone, you didn't." Similarly, Technical Sergeant John Patterson of the 6003rd Tank Destroyer Battalion emphasized that the Hellcat was designed for aggression and unexpected strikes. The Hellcat wasn't about fair fights. It was about unfair fights in our favor. We'd hit them where they didn't expect us, when they didn't expect it, and be gone before they could react. Private First Class Robert Chen, serving with the 700th 4th Tank Destroyer Battalion, described his personal experience, acknowledging the raw vulnerability of the vehicle while also celebrating its speed. "Every time I climbed into our M18, I knew I was sitting in a tin can, but it was a tin can that could run 55 miles per hour. That speed saved my life more times than any armor could have." This highlights a fundamental truth about the vehicle. Its mobility was paramount, often more critical than its armor protection. The combat statistics of the M18 Hellcat reveal a complex portrait of its strengths and vulnerabilities. Its top speed of 55 miles per hour, or approximately 88.5 kilometers per hour on paved roads, gave it an edge in rapid repositioning. Off-road, it could reach the speeds of around 26 miles per hour, or 42 kilometers per hour. Its acceleration from 0 to 30 miles per hour in just 11 seconds allowed it to quickly engage or withdraw from combat. The vehicle boasted an operational range of 150 miles, or 241 kilometers, on a 75-gallon fuel tank, while exerting a ground pressure of only 10.5 pounds per square inch. Lighter than many trucks, facilitating swift movement over varied terrains. When evaluating its combat effectiveness, the M18 proved capable of destroying an average of approximately 2.4 enemy tanks per vehicle engaged. Its average survival time in active combat zones was around 67 days, demonstrating a reasonable balance between offensive capability and durability. Mechanical reliability was also notable. Crews could expect to operate the vehicle for roughly 200 miles or 321 kilometers between major maintenance sessions. The crew survival rate when their vehicle was destroyed was approximately 73%, a testament to the vehicle's speed and the crew's ability to escape danger. These statistics underscore the dual nature of the M18 Hellcat's design philosophy. Its remarkable speed contributed directly to the high crew survival rate by enabling rapid escapes when under attack. Conversely, the relatively short duration of combat survivability pointed to the inherent vulnerability of its thin armor, which could be penetrated more easily than heavier tanks. The M18's influence extends beyond its immediate battlefield successes, shaping modern concepts of warfare. In particular, its emphasis on reducing the time between sensor detection and shooter response laid the groundwork for contemporary tactics that prioritize rapid target engagement, sometimes called shoot and scoot, which remains a cornerstone of modern armored warfare. Today, the M18 Hellcat stands out as one of the most groundbreaking and innovative combat vehicles ever designed, a true testament to American industrial prowess and tactical ingenuity. Born from a unique blend of technological capability and creative military thinking, this armored vehicle fundamentally challenged long-held assumptions about what it takes to win a battle on the modern battlefield. During the Second World War, German tank crews, highly trained and accustomed to overcoming their opponents through superior armor and firepower, suddenly found that their conventional tactics were no longer effective against this new threat. The American approach introduced a radical shift in the rules of engagement, forcing German forces to rethink their entire strategy. One of the most striking features of the Hellcat was its astonishing speed, capable of reaching a top velocity of 55 miles per hour. This speed was not merely a technical specification or a superficial boast. It represented a profound change in armored warfare philosophy. Such velocity was incompatible with traditional German tactics, which relied heavily on heavily armored tanks and methodical, slow advances designed to maximize firepower and protection. The rapid movement of the Hellcat embodied a new paradigm, one where agility and rapid maneuvering could outflank, outpace, and ultimately outwit the enemy's expectations and defenses. The success of the M18 Hellcat in combat proved an essential lesson. In warfare, as in nature, survival does not always favor the strongest or most heavily armed. Instead, victory often belongs to those who are fastest, most adaptable, and most agile under pressure. German tank crews, observing their carefully aimed shots fail to hit the swiftly moving American vehicles, learned this lesson repeatedly during their campaigns across France, in the icy forests of the Ardennes, and during the decisive final battles fought within the borders of Germany itself. The relentless speed of the Hellcat made it a ghostly adversary, impossible to pin down or predict, and always one step ahead. Today, military historians analyze the story of the M18 Hellcat as more than just a tale of a successful tank destroyer. They see it as a shining example of American military innovation at its most inventive, where enemy strengths were systematically negated through unconventional tactics and technological breakthroughs. The Germans, many of whom had trained their crews to rely on armor and firepower, remained unaware of the full capabilities of the Hellcat until they faced it directly in combat. Its astonishing speed caught them off guard, transforming the vehicle from a mere mechanical machine into a symbol of strategic surprise. This technological and tactical surprise, combined with highly effective crew training and innovative operational tactics, allowed the Hellcat to transcend its mechanical design. It became a weapon system that redefined what was possible on the battlefield. The impact of the M18 Hellcat was such that it effectively rewrote the mathematics of armored combat, challenging the notion that protection required thick armor or that lethality necessitated the largest guns. Instead, the Hellcat demonstrated that battlefield dominance could be achieved through superior mobility, speed, and agility. At its peak velocity of 55 miles per hour, the Hellcat outpaced not only German tanks, but also the prevailing German military doctrine itself, which was built on slow, heavily armored vehicles and calculated, deliberate tactics. This relentless pace and strategic flexibility made the Hellcat a ghostly harbinger of modern warfare, where speed and maneuverability often trump brute force and protection. The legacy of the Hellcat still haunts contemporary military thinking, serving as a vivid reminder that sometimes the most effective armor is simply not being where the enemy expects you to be. Every time a military planner opts for mobility over armor, every time a commander emphasizes rapid action instead of cautious, deliberate preparation, and every time weapons designers accept a degree of vulnerability to achieve peak performance, the lessons of the Hellcat resonate. Its story echoes through decades of military innovation, reminding strategists that sometimes the best defense is not just protection, but the to strike swiftly and vanish before the enemy can respond. The German tank crews of the 113th Panzer Brigade, the 2nd Panzer Division, and countless other units learned these lessons the hard way, through blood, fire, and loss. Facing an adversary that refused to fight on their terms, that turned their own strengths into vulnerabilities, and that could strike and retreat like elusive phantoms in the fog, they came to understand that American innovation did not simply mean building better tanks. It meant creating a fundamentally different kind of weapon, one that moved too fast for traditional tactics, training, and turret-mounted guns to counter. The M18 Hellcat, with its remarkable 55 miles per hour capability, an embodiment of American audacity, remains a powerful symbol of how speed can become the ultimate weapon in warfare. German tank crews, unaware of just how fast the Hellcat could go until they encountered it in combat, paid a heavy price for their ignorance. By the time they realized the extent of its capabilities, it was often already too late, and the war was slipping away from their grasp. The battle was lost not solely on the battlefield, but also in the realm. Indeed, it was as if a force emerged from the shadows, turning the tables on those who once considered themselves the pursuers. This mysterious entity or phenomenon seemed to pursue the very hunters who had dedicated themselves to tracking and capturing others, creating a chilling reversal of roles. The tables had been turned so completely that the once dominant hunters now found themselves under the relentless gaze of what appeared to be their own prey, evoking a sense of dread and awe. The situation became a haunting reminder that in the intricate dance of pursuit and evasion, the line separating hunter from hunted can blur unexpectedly, revealing that even the most confident pursuers may someday become the pursued themselves.